Some horrors don't crawl out of basements or out of forests. Some sit across from you at the dinner table, wearing the face of the person you love most. Welcome back, Nightmares and Ghouls. I'm Yashi. Thank you for joining me tonight, and welcome to my corner of the internet, where unsettling stories are whispered while I color. Every tale told is shared with author's permission, and they are, as always, linked below. Tonight's tale comes from Reddit user HorrorJunkie. It begins with a betrayal you've probably heard thousands of times before, one of a husband's affair. But in this tale, once the truth is exposed, something far worse slithers in, something that wears his voice, his smile, and even his skin, but it's not him. This is not the average story of a cheating spouse. This is a replacement story, a story where the most familiar face becomes the thing you should fear the most. So grab a drink, grab a snack, and let's get into it. This is My Husband Cheated on Me by HorrorJunkie. Justin and I had been together for 10 years and married for 6. I'd been with him for my entire adult life. We'd been dating since I was 17 and he was 18. I always thought he was my soulmate, the man I wanted to grow old with. Turns out, I was wrong. I was devastated when I found out the truth. Sure, Justin had been staying out later than usual, and his explanations were flimsy at best. I'm not stupid. I had my suspicions, but I think I really just didn't want to come to terms with the fact that my husband was seeing another woman behind my back. Honestly, I might have gone years without discovering the truth, but Justin got sloppy. Hey, welcome home, honey. Fun night out with the guys after work again? Uh-huh. Justin grumbled, brushing past me. I made dinner if you're hungry. Beef tips and rice. I know it's one of your favorites. I ate at the bar. I'm going to bed, he muttered, steadying himself against the wall before woozily clambering up the stairs. My heart sank. Nights like that were becoming more and more frequent. I loved my husband. All I wanted was to spend a little quality time with him after a long day at work, but he couldn't even spare me a few minutes. I glanced up at him as he lumbered up the steps, a tear trickling down my cheek. In an instant, any sadness that I felt was replaced by a burning rage, because when Justin passed underneath the overhead light, I saw what appeared to be a hickey on the side of his neck. A cocktail of emotions swirled within me. Despair, resentment, betrayal. They all hit me like a ton of bricks. I was stunned. I didn't know what to do. I mean, who would? The man I had been head over heels with for all that time had stabbed me in the back. I was in utter disbelief. I stumbled into the kitchen, pulling out a chair before I could collapse. I stared off into space, trying to make sense of what I'd seen. I sat there for a long time, deep in thought. After a while, I felt numb, like my entire personality had been flushed down the drain, leaving me nothing but an empty husk. Then, a thought flashed across my mind. I must have been mistaken. That had to be it. Just a mere trick of the light. It was a pretty dimly lit hallway after all. Whatever the case, I had to know. Abandoning my dinner, I tiptoed upstairs. I crept into our room as quiet as a church mouse, before lightly pushing open the bedroom door. Justin was fast asleep. I didn't waste any time. I rushed across the room, careful to avoid any squeaky floorboards, and I inspected Justin's neck. His snores grew louder as I approached. He always was a heavy sleeper. I cursed when I got a closer look. Justin was sleeping on his side with the alleged hickey, and I was not about to try and roll him over. I glanced around, searching for anything that might prove concrete evidence, and then my eyes fell to the bedside table. Bingo. I snatched Justin's phone from his charger. I held my breath as I pressed his meaty thumb onto the screen to unlock it. I grinned, feeling a rush of exhilaration as I achieved my goal. What? I froze. Justin groggily opened his eyes a sliver, and my hand hovered over him. My blood turned to ice, and I prayed with all my might that my husband would just go back to sleep. To my immediate shock, my prayers were answered. Justin mumbled incoherently under his breath before grabbing a fistful of covers and nodding off. I escaped by the skin of my teeth. I had to be more careful. The first thing I did was check Justin's text messages. I immediately saw a woman's name I didn't recognize, and my heart shattered when I read the messages. Him. Hey, baby. Last night was incredible. See you again after work today?
Her.
You're damn right. I wish you never had to leave. What about that wife of yours, though? Won't she get suspicious?
Him.
Her? Not a chance. Even if she does find out, she won't leave. I could murder a baby in front of her and she'd still think I was a saint.
A deep-seated rage bubbled within me. Did Justin really think that little of me? He clearly saw me as nothing more than a spineless, codependent pushover. Well, I'd show him. I screenshot the evidence, scrolling through dozens of nude photos that weren't of me or that I had taken. I sent everything to my phone. I deleted any proof of my snooping, then replaced Justin's phone back on the charger. I stormed out of the room, grabbing my keys as I went. I made it halfway across the living room when I suddenly realized I had nowhere to go. All of my family lived 7 hours away, and it was too late to book a decent hotel, and I really didn't want to drag any of my friends into this drama. Not yet, at least. That left me with one option. It was me and the couch for the night. I plopped down onto the sofa with a heavy sigh. I didn't want to confront it, but I knew I had to do it. In the morning, I was going to find a lawyer and start the divorce process. The thought alone was enough to break me. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't hold back the tears any longer. I cried like a baby, silently sobbing into a scratchy pillow for what must have been hours. My eyes were puffy and sore by the time the tears finally stopped. I couldn't fathom falling asleep in a state like that, but the mental exhaustion must have taken over at some point, because the next thing I remember, sunlight was flooding through the blinds. "Morning, babe. How did you..." The rest of the sentence caught in my throat. That was right. Justin and I, our marriage, it was all about to be over. I grabbed my phone from the coffee table, tears stinging at the corner of my vision again. I opened up the text messages I'd sent myself as proof that the past 12 hours hadn't been some twisted, awful nightmare. But the messages were gone. The screenshots, the proof I sent myself from his phone, it was all gone. My eyes grew wide as I stared at the screen. That couldn't be right. They'd been there, clear as day, the night before. Something wasn't adding up. I suddenly paused, bolting upright. Was that breakfast? The tantalizing aroma of eggs and bacon wafted around the corner from the kitchen. My brows furrowed. Justin never cooked. My breathing was shallow as I tentatively shuffled towards the kitchen. Curiosity gnawed at me like a piranha. I apprehensively peeked around the corner, unsure of what I'd find. To my shock, there was my husband, humming a little tune while flipping pancakes. I rubbed my eyes. Was I seeing things? Surely I was delusional from a lack of sleep. That had to have been it. Then Justin turned, his icy blue eyes locking onto mine. "Morning, princess. I hope you're hungry. I saw you sleeping on the couch and I thought you might not be feeling well, so I decided to make you a hot meal to help you feel better." My heart skipped a beat. Was this really my husband? It looked like him. Sounded like him too. Still, I was wary. Yeah, just feeling a little under the weather is all. Are you feeling okay? You're acting different. Never been better. Honestly, I think I've really turned a new leaf, he said, placing a steaming plate before me. The old Justin is kaput. From now on, I swear, I'm going to be the best husband I can be. Our gazes connected. I searched his expression for answers, for lies, but he actually seemed genuine. If this was an act, it was a damn good one. Thanks, babe. It makes me really happy to hear that. Justin beamed at me, the warmth of his smile seeping into my heart, melting it in an instant. It had been years since he looked at me like that. Well, get used to it, because I'm keeping my word. I love you, Lydia. I really wanted to be suspicious. I wanted to remain silent. I wanted to keep up my guard. But how could I? All I ever needed and wanted was his love and attention, and I was finally getting both. For the first time in a long time, it felt like my husband actually cared. I love you too, Justin. I beamed back at him before digging into my meal. A big part of me was still leery of my husband. His timing was a little too convenient, after all. But even with all my doubts, Justin was seemingly sticking to his promise. He took me out on dates, paid to get my nails done, brought me flowers. He even started shouldering most of the housework. Needless to say, I was impressed. If he would have kept that up, I might have never suspected a thing. But one night, he slipped up. We were cuddled up on the couch, watching The Truman Show, when I mentioned a seemingly innocent question. Now, I wish I would have kept my mouth shut.
Hey, babe.
Yes, my love? Justin asked, his eyes still glued to the screen.
If someone close to you was an imposter, like a perfect replica, except for a few tiny changes, do you think you'd notice?
Justin suddenly tensed up next to me, his eyes wide as he slowly turned to face me. A blank stare had overtaken his expression. A chill rippled through my body when he looked at me. Suddenly, I was frightened of my husband. I suppose so. Why do you ask? His voice was monotone, dripping with a tinge of urgency. I didn't know how to process this sudden shift in personality.
It's the premise of the movie we're watching.
I watched as the color seeped back into his face, and he loosened up, breathing a sigh of relief. I cocked a curious brow. Why was he acting so strange? Oh, yeah, that makes sense. We sat there in uncomfortable silence, shifting our attention back to the TV screen. After a few moments, I couldn't take it anymore.
I've got to use the restroom and charge my phone. I'll be right back. No need to pause the movie for me.
Justin nodded before grinning up at me. His smile, had his teeth always been so straight? Okay, baby girl, hurry back. Wouldn't want your spot to get cold.
Yeah, babe, sure thing.
I practically bolted up the stairs, locking myself in our room. I slumped against the door, trying to steady my racing heart. What the fuck was going on? Was it just me? Or was that some seriously freaky shit? Either way, I needed a second to calm down. I had my eyes shut, focusing on my breathing, when I heard my phone buzzing from inside my pocket. I hurriedly retrieved it, glancing at the screen. An unknown number. I normally don't answer calls from strangers, but something inside me compelled me. Maybe it was intuition, or perhaps I just wanted to talk to someone other than my husband. In the end, I accepted the call.
Hello?
Lydia? Lydia Atkins?
Speaking.
Look, this is going to sound crazy, but I need you to hear what I have to say.
Okay.
I suddenly jolted up from my spot on the floor and stared at the locked door separating me from the hallway. Loud knocks rattled it in its frame. Lydia, who are you talking to? Panic surged through me as I scrambled for an answer.
It's my mom. Go back downstairs. I'll only be a minute.
That was him, wasn't it? The caller said.
That was my husband. Why do you ask?
I whispered, putting as much distance between myself and the door as possible. Lydia, I need you to hear me out. Can you promise me that you will? The pounding on the opposite side of the door grew even louder. Lydia, don't listen to her. She's a fucking liar. My stomach began to twist itself into knots. How did he know?
I'm listening. I'll hear what you have to say.
The woman on the other end of the line breathed an audible sigh of relief. Okay, my name is Adeline, and Justin and I have been seeing each other for about 9 months. That man in your house is not your husband. My blood turned to ice in my veins as I began to tremble. No, that couldn't be true. In a shaky voice, I asked the question that will haunt me until I die.
How do I know you're telling the truth?
There was a long pause, the bangs outside my door reaching a nauseating crescendo. When Adeline answered, I knew without a shadow of a doubt I was in serious danger. Lydia, for the past week, Justin has been living with me.
Adeline? If that's not my husband, then who is it?
I tried to remain calm. I tried to think rationally, but Adeline must have picked up on the fear in my voice. Lydia, I don't know, but you need to get out of that house if you can. I'm going to send you my address, and I'll explain everything in person. I have to go. I'm sorry. The line went dead. All the while, the hammering continued to escalate. Lydia, unlock this fucking door. I swear, if I have to break this damn thing down, I will. His words sent a chill down my spine. Justin had only raised his voice at me a handful of times in the decade that I've known him, and none of them were as threatening as that. I stood there, momentarily stunned. But one hard kick from the other side of the door was all I needed to get moving. I snatched my keys from the bedside table and raced to the window overlooking the front lawn. I hurriedly unlocked it and began to pull with all my strength.
Come on, you piece of shit. Open!
I begged, a massive surge of adrenaline aiding my efforts. With one final heave, the window finally gave way, and not a moment too soon. The door began to splinter and crack. A few more hearty blows and it was done for. I didn't have any time to waste. I punched out the screen, watching it tumble onto the shingles below. I took a deep breath before hoisting myself out onto the roof below. I had one leg out the window when the door couldn't hold anymore. Whoever, or whatever, was pretending to be my husband finally managed to get inside. My eyes went wide as he charged towards me. "Lydia, don't do this. I can explain." I didn't want to hear what he had to say. Maybe that was stupid of me. Maybe I should have stayed and talked things out. But in that moment, Adeline's words kept surfacing to the forefront of my mind. Now, I can only pray that I made the right choice. I pulled myself the remainder of the way out of the window and slid down the roof, desperate to escape my pursuer. I yelped as I felt fingernails graze my arm. My heart felt like a jackhammer in my chest as I fell onto the grass below. I scrambled to my feet, somehow unscathed from the fall, aside from a few minor scratches, and I bolted to my car. I flung the door open, threw myself inside, and jammed the keys into the ignition. Before I peeled out of the driveway, I briefly glanced up. Justin's mimic was standing in the window, glowering at me. A devastating sense of dread consumed me when our eyes locked. That's what terrified me the most. His eyes. They were burning with rage, but something about them felt wrong. In fact, his entire face looked off, like he was trying to express an intense emotion, but he didn't quite know how. That instantly silenced any qualms I had about leaving. I slammed the car into reverse and floored it. I briefly looked back as I sped away. My stomach twisted itself into knots when I did. The window was empty. I was a wreck the entire way to Adeline's house. An overwhelming flood of confusion, resentment, and fear swirled within me as the realization sunk in. Justin really had cheated on me. And on top of that, he was leaving me for his mistress. It was all just too much to process. I flew down the empty streets, tears trickling down my face. How did this happen? Why me? Why couldn't I have normal marital problems, like leaving the milk out or arguing over whose turn it was to do the dishes? I didn't ask for any of this. It wasn't fair. Fortunately, I didn't have much time to think about it. Thanks to my erratic driving, I made it to Adeline's place, if you could even call it that, in about 10 minutes flat. I quickly parked beside the curb and stepped out. I gazed in bewilderment at the rundown shack as I made my way to the door. The house was tiny in comparison to ours. Faded yellow paint peeled off the exterior, the shutters clung for dear life, and empty beer bottles littered the front lawn. I'd be lying if I said it didn't give me a little glint of satisfaction. I took a deep breath as I approached the door. Was I really going to go through with this? How did I know that Adeline was even telling the truth? Maybe I shouldn't have come. Before I had a chance to mull over any of those thoughts, the door swung open. A young woman, at least 5 years younger than me, stood in the doorway. As much as it pains me to admit it, she was beautiful. Long, blonde hair flowed down to her waist, and ocean eyes stared into mine. She was in stark contrast to me in every way. "Lydia, please, come in. I slapped Adeline hard across the face, leaving an angry red imprint on her cheek. "Sorry. Knee-jerk reaction." She nodded, staring down at her feet, shocked. "No, I deserve that. Come in. We've got a lot to talk about." I obliged, following her inside. The inside of the home wasn't much better than the outside. Empty takeout containers were strewn about the floor, the carpet was stained with God knows what, and the whole place smelled like cigarette smoke. It took everything in me not to throw up. Adeline rushed to the couch, brushing away some stale potato chips from one of the cushions. "Sorry about the mess. You can have a seat if you want." One glance at the food-crusted sofa, and I instantly knew my answer. Thanks, but I think I'll stand." "If you say so," Adeline shrugged, claiming the spot for herself. "I guess I've got some explaining to do, huh?" "You sure fucking do." Adeline again shifted her gaze to the floor before meeting my stare. "Look, I'm really sorry about Justin. I'm not going to sit here and make up some half-assed excuse. I know I'm a terrible person. I folded my arms across my chest. You're not wrong. Is he here right now? You're at fault too, but Justin is the one I'm actually pissed off at. No, he's at the bar. He said he had some drinking to do. Lydia, I'm really sorry. I know I can't make it up to you, but... I held up my hand to stop her. Look, as much as I would love to berate you and listen to you suck up to me all night, that's not why I came here. I've got bigger problems to worry about right now. How did you know about whatever took Justin's place? Adeline bit her lip, twirling a few strands of hair between her fingers. Well, tonight I went with Justin to get some of his things from y'all's house. He said he usually took a bath around that time, so he was just gonna go in and get out before you noticed. But that thing, whatever it is, it met him at the door before he could go inside. I saw them arguing, then Justin walked back to the truck, pale as a ghost. He dropped me off here without a single word. After I saw that, I knew I had to warn you. I made Justin give me your number, and I called you right when I got home. I nodded, soaking in her revelation. That makes sense. I was wondering how you got my number, but I still have questions. What is that thing, and how did it manage to replace my husband? I mean, it even has the same truck as he does. How is that possible? Adeline pursed her lips. I don't know. I wish I had more answers for you. But Lydia, you have to listen to me. Whatever you're dealing with, I don't think it has good intentions. Watch this. I'll prove to you that I'm telling the truth, she said, pulling up a video on her phone. I leaned in to get a better look. The video was of Justin. He was standing on our front porch, talking to himself. I could tell right away that the one facing the camera was the mimic. It was too perfect. All its features were smooth. I couldn't believe I hadn't noticed it before. The longer I watched, the more uneasy I felt. As the conversation progressed, I could tell that the real Justin was getting heated. There was no audio, but I could see him getting visibly more angry, even with his back turned. Then something strange happened. The imposter's face began to twist and contort in unnatural ways. It was as if someone was molding it with clay, an invisible hand, and that was the end of the video. The sight of it disturbed me on a primal level. My stomach churned and my head began to spin. I seriously thought I was going to be sick this time. That's why I had to tell you. I couldn't just sit by and let that thing hurt you. A loud pounding against the front door cut Adeline off. Lydia! Lydia, are you in there? I just want to talk. Adeline and I shared a terrified glance. This couldn't be happening. How had he tracked me down? Follow me. I'll take you out the back. You parked on the street, right? Adeline whispered, leaping from the couch. Yeah, but how do I get around him? Won't he catch me if I make a break for it? Adeline met my gaze, a fiery determination gleaming in her eyes. I'll distract him. It's the least I can do. Good luck, she said, ushering me outside. The door clicked shut before I had a chance to thank her. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and without giving myself any time to freak out, I raced to my car. I squeezed my keys with a vice grip as I ran, the world around me devolving into a blur of colors. I didn't even spare a glance at the front porch as I flew past it. I was too focused on making it off that property alive. I was mere inches from the safety of my car. I was so close, but then I heard him. Lydia, why are you running? Come on, don't be like this. I fumbled with the keys and scrambled into my car. Justin 2.0 sprinted toward me at an inhuman speed. Behind him, the door to the house was hanging wide open, and Adeline was nowhere to be seen. I hurriedly turned my attention back to the steering wheel. I slammed on the gas, tires squealing as I sped away. I glanced in the rearview mirror, and my heart nearly stopped. Justin's mimic was standing beneath a street lamp. I don't know if it was my nerves or maybe the poor lighting, but I could have sworn that when I looked back at him, he was smiling, and for a moment, I was sure I saw blood dribbling down his chin. I felt so lost, so confused. What the hell had just happened? Why did this thing want to track me down so badly? And Adeline, what had he done to her? I wasn't sure I wanted to know the answer to that last question. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my pounding heart. It's gonna be okay. Just calm down and come up with a game plan. It'll be over soon, I muttered to myself, staring reassuringly at my reflection in the rearview mirror. I didn't really believe that, but I had to do something. I couldn't afford to keep crying my eyes out and waiting here like a sitting duck. I needed a game plan. Step 1, refill the car with gas. At the next gas station, I hopped out of my car and prepaid for my gas. My head was on a swivel as I inserted the nozzle into the tank. The gas station was desolate, save for an elderly gentleman smoking a cigarette by the front door. My foot tapped against the concrete as the fuel gauge slowly ticked up. My heart pounded like a jackhammer the entire time, just waiting to see that familiar red truck pull in beside me, but it never did. I breathed a sigh of relief, placing the fuel pump back into its compartment. Before jumping back into my driver's seat, I glanced back at the man by the door for a split second. He was talking on the phone now, and was he grinning at me? I didn't want to wait around to figure out what he was planning. I zipped down the road and onto the interstate. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew that I needed to keep getting as far away from my husband's mimic as I possibly could. Once I was on the open road and all the fear had started to dissipate, everything finally hit me. The cheating, the lies, the betrayal, all of it all crashed down on me like a tidal wave. What hurt the most was the false sense of security I was lulled into by that thing. I had let myself believe that Justin had changed, that he'd turned a new leaf with no provocation whatsoever. The thought that all that time, none of that love that I had received was even real, it shattered my heart all over again. I'm not ashamed to admit that I cried the way I did. I sobbed uncontrollably as I continued down the sparsely populated roads. I didn't want to be on the run from some unknown entity. I wanted to go back home and take a nice, long, hot bath, but I knew I couldn't do that. I had been driving for a little over 3.5 hours before I started to get low on fuel again. I pulled off on the nearest exit. By that point, the adrenaline had worn off and I was starting to get tired. I soon found myself at a rundown Motel 6 in the middle of bumfuck Egypt. The red and blue neon sign flickered as I pulled into the parking lot, a great indicator of the quality of the room I'd be staying in. I took a deep breath and I looked at myself in the mirror. Come on, Lydia, you can do this, I told myself, stepping out of the car. My eyes darted from left to right as I made my way to check in. My BMW looked so out of place alongside the rusted clunkers sprinkled throughout the lot. I picked up my pace, my heart rate spiking again. A bell chimed as I opened the door to retrieve my key. A young man with black, greasy hair sat behind the counter reading a Playboy magazine. He didn't even look up as I approached. Hi. Can I get a room, please? The boy lazily glanced up at me before releasing a sigh. Sure, $50. I pursed my lips as I fished around in my wallet. $50 for a night in this dump? What a ripoff. I slapped the cash onto the counter, thanking my lucky stars that I wouldn't have to risk getting my bank information stolen from their card reader. The boy, whose name tag read Steven, handed me the key for room number 12 before pocketing the cash. Thanks, I said, shooting him a glare as I snatched the keys from him. He gave me a slight nod before returning to his magazine. I nearly sprinted to room number 12. I jammed the key into the lock before shoving the door open. Right as I was closing it, something caught my eye. Headlights. I kept the door cracked just enough to see. Silly, right? Surely I was being paranoid. There's no way that... Yeah, it was him. Justin's truck cruised into the parking lot. It was unmistakable. The faded red paint, the dent in the driver's side door, the crack running down the entirety of the windshield, it was all there. I quietly locked myself in the room, my head spinning. How was this happening? I was so far from home. How had he found me again? The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. How could I be so stupid? The answer was so simple. I pulled out my phone, and there it was. Justin and I were sharing our locations. With everything that had happened, I hadn't even thought to turn it off. I knew it was too late, but I turned off the location services anyways. I felt nauseous as I placed my phone back into my pocket. How accurate was that thing? Did the doppelganger know what room I was in? Morbid curiosity got the best of me. I had to know. With a shaky hand, I brushed back the blinds to my window. The second I did, tears began to trickle down my cheeks, and my blood turned to ice. He was outside. Justin's mimic was standing directly outside my window. His eyes were wide and manic. The grin he wore looked off, like it was too big for his face. I couldn't move. I was frozen in place, paralyzed with fear. The Justin mimic walked up to the glass and paused for just a moment. The silence was so deafening, the only audible noise was the blood pumping in my ears. And then he moved. His tongue lolled out of his mouth and he slapped it against the glass with a wet thump. He dragged it upward, those inhuman eyes never breaking contact with mine. His smile vanished as he gritted out, "I found you. It's time to stop running and let me in." That was enough to snap me out of my frozen stupor. I let the blinds fall over the window and stumbled backwards, nearly crashing into the table. And that's where I'm at now, recording this at the same table. I know that I'm done for. It's only a matter of time before he breaks in. I phoned the front desk, but no one answered. I called the police too, but response times are slow this far out in the boonies. This will most likely be my final update. If the cops don't show up in time, I don't know what he'll do to me. My hands are trembling. He's trying to kick the door down, and I don't think it's gonna hold. To anyone hearing this, please listen to my words. If you notice a sudden change in a loved one's personality, don't just brush it off, because it might just be this thing, wearing their face. Monsters in closets can be handled. Monsters in mirrors can't. When something learns your habits, your voice, your love, hiding becomes pointless. Thank you for joining me tonight, Nightmares. If this story chilled you the way it chilled me, then take a breath, check your locks, and remember, some things don't lurk in the shadows. They sit beside you, smiling. If you'd like to hear more stories like this one, please don't forget to subscribe. And please check out our author of the night, HorrorJunkie, on Reddit. Their profile is linked below. And don't forget, keep the lights dim and your doubts loud. Hey ghouls, thank you all for being so patient with me these last couple of weeks. I had a lot of things happening in my daytime life. I got married to the Gomez to my Morticia. I've had finals for my classes, and I've begun the process of moving. I've decided I'm going to start going live on YouTube while I work on my coloring for my next videos, and I would love for you to join me. If you would like more updates, please come join my Discord, which is also linked below. And as always, don't forget to stay spooky.